Okay. Welcome. I'm very excited about today's conversation because it's going to get all juicy about the new paradigm. I am welcoming Maike Gabriela, who is a deconditioning expert and human design reader. She supports conscious people like you to find their way back to themselves and their authenticity through her understanding of psychology and human design. She helps to dissolve limiting beliefs and blockages so that you can pursue an energetically aligned life. All of that is my jam. And Micah and I have quite a long-standing connection. But interestingly enough, this is the first time we've ever spoken other than like maybe like through our mutual connection. We have a mutual bestie.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
heard so much about one another, but we've never actually spoken, like besides a few chats, like
Yeah,
very
exactly.
quick chats through DMs here and there, throughout many years now. I
Yeah.
guess it's probably been like I was just chatting with Micah about how our mutual friend, our mutual bestie, and Micah met in Brazil, like what, 7 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I feel like 7 years
Mm-hmm.
outside.
So it's been a long-standing connection. So I'm very happy to
Yeah.
have you here. And I guess I would love to start by asking you to share with our listeners or viewers, depending on where you're consuming this, uh, how did you get into human design and this coming out of this spiritual, energetic closet? What brought you to that point?
That's exactly how I describe it. I had to step out of my spiritual closet. So I was working in a fashion. I had my own sustainable underwear brand. I had a newborn child. My business wasn't working. I didn't understand why it wasn't working. I was doing what everybody told me to do, what every workshop program I had bought was telling me to do. I was working like 14 hours a day. I was writing 120 emails a day. And I was just like, why? Like everybody was like, the branding is beautiful and the message is great. And I truly believe it was, and it is, but I wasn't making ends meet. And I had this newborn child and I was like, just so bitter and I didn't understand what was happening. So as we do, I really believe our soul is constantly searching for like answers to
Mm.
understand why we're not receiving the things that we know are meant for us. So I was like searching, listening to podcasts, reading, blah, blah, blah. And then one night, when I had just like put my daughter down to sleep for 20 minutes, because I knew she was going to wake up in 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I heard a podcast and somebody said something about being a projector. And I had like no idea what that was, but I'm like, that's exactly what I am.
Mm.
And this is like 4 years ago, and there wasn't that much information about human design as there is now. And so I just started researching and like digging into it, and it really was like a light bulb going on. I was like, I cannot believe like my whole life suddenly made sense, and it
Mm.
really allowed me to look at why my business wasn't working and why I was feeling the way I was feeling and why I had like, like a chronic illness and like a lot of things that I didn't understand. And yeah, and I went down the human design rabbit hole, and then it was like just something that I don't know. I'm a very grounded person, so I feel like the way that human design describes things is very, I don't know. It's not as woo woo as many other esoteric practices, so I felt like
Mm-hmm.
really called to it. And then I started doing it for my friends and learning by myself. And then in January of 2020, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a reader's training. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am very creative, but I don't have anything tangible like cutting hair or something like that as my skill. So I thought it would be super cool. I mean, I know like human design reading doesn't sound very tangible, but I thought like it would be super cool. Like if I am invited to dinner at the end of the night, like I can, be the quirky girl who does like human design readings or whatever, like as an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in January, and I took the training, and I think like or like mid January or end of January. And then by February I was done, and then March the pandemic happened, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, all my fashion jobs froze. And I
Yep.
was like, I don't know what to do. So what I did was what we just said. I literally stepped out of the spiritual closet. The only person who knew that I was into like self-help and development and all these things was our friend in common with whom I have like a lot of very long voice messages.
Yes.
Um, so, so she was the only person around me that was actually like conscious and interested in the same things that I was, and I didn't know anybody in like my real life. Um, So yeah, then I started talking about it on Instagram. Like I started slowly. I started talking about more psychology and, like self-worth and stuff like that. And then, when I started talking about human design, it just really took off and I was super scared. But yeah, it's been like an amazing journey. If I look back.
That's so exciting. And it suits you so well. So what's your design?
I'm a 3/5 splenic projector. What are you,
Aha!
Milli?
I'm a 3/5 emotional generator.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
three
can
high
feel
five
that
to
you're
the three
emotional
five.
because I'm extremely excited talking to you. And I love talking to emotional people because they always like make me very excited.
Oh, yeah, I love that. And I love the 3/5 too. When I really understood the profile piece, I didn't understand it at first. When I really started to understand the profile piece, I was like, yes, that is so me, and just gave me so much like validation. I think for me, what human design gave me was just such a an opportunity for self-acceptance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So
I don't think you hear anything in your human design reading that you don't somewhat know on like a core level. And what I think is so interesting about the profile is that a lot of times people think that what makes us be similar in our human design is our energy type, but really what makes us understand how the other person works and functions is the profile. So you will always get along extremely well with people who have a similar number or the same number in your profile.
So let's take a step back for a second for anybody listening that doesn't actually know what human design is, because I'm sure there are still people listening that are like, oh, this sounds interesting. What the heck is that? So what's your explanation for what is human design?
Okay, so human design is the science of our aura. We all have an energetic body, which is around 3 arms lengths and 2 meters, like around us. And everything in our life is matter, meaning everything in our life is energy. So once we understand our own energetic body, we can start playing with the universe and understand why we feel resistance in places and move it into a state of flow. And human design is made out of astrology, the ancient knowledge of the I Ching, the mystic side of Judaism, which is Kabbalah, and the chakra systems, which people might know more from yoga. But it also involves quantum physics and genetics. And together with your birth time, birth hour, birthplace, you get what we call the body graph, which I always say looks a little bit like the backside of an old watch, like it looks very mechanical.
Oh,
It
yeah.
has numbers and like different energy centers, like it looks very interesting. So through that, we can read who you are authentically and what your genetic map is. So we can remove the conditioning from the outside world and get in touch with who you came to be, your purpose and your karma.
I love it so much because in my work, I'm always talking about authenticity and being who you really are and, self-worth and self-love. And this is such a great tool and avenue towards all of those things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's obviously helped me in such a large way, helped you in such a large way. So many people really that I now know previously also didn't. And human design is gaining so much popularity and there's so much more awareness around it. Sometimes I wonder because I am in like these bubbles that are so heavily into human design, how many people really, like if there was a percentage, like if there was someone who was tracking how many people actually knew about human design, but I'm quite certain that it's exploding in popularity. I'm quite certain.
I totally so too. Yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah. So, okay. So we don't have to go like specifically into a bunch of human design, like teaching on it or anything like that. But I noticed what really caught my eye on your Instagram page, which for anyone who wants to go and find your Instagram, it's going to be in the show notes here, so we can say it, but you can also just go down and grab it.
Maike Gabriela. Everything
Yeah.
is like my website, my Instagram, it's at Maike Gabriela.
Yes.
And loads of free value content, so go check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So on your Instagram, what caught my eye was you had a post that said preparing for 2027. And I'm so into this kind of stuff. I'm so into like predictions, and I love astrology as well. I'm by no means an expert in astrology. I know human design much better, but when I saw that and you had specifically for each energy type, some advice there. So the new paradigm. Okay. What is the new paradigm you speak of that we are preparing for?
Let's talk about the new paradigm. So right now in human design, we are at the tail end of a life cycle. And this life cycle has been influenced by a frequency, which is called the cross of the planning. And this has been going on for the last 2000 years. This influence has brought structures, has brought organizations, has brought outer authorities like the government, religion. These are the kind of things that we've been growing up with, right? These are the things that we needed because we came from like the Neanderthal, which was very primal and like everything was about survival, and we needed structure and organization to move into this new paradigm, into this new life cycle. So this new life cycle we're entering is called the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix, and it's going to start in 2027. But we are already feeling the frequency of what is coming. Yeah. And in this new era, in this new paradigm, we're moving into something like a gate that is the gate of the individual. So it's all about understanding, who am I? What is my purpose? What are my patterns, my trauma? Who are you? What makes you you? What is your purpose, your trauma, your patterns, right? So I really believe that we are seeing this increment in interest in human design, but also just general, all the tools that help us understand us better and get us to be more authentic, because we can actually have space to question that, come from this new influence, from this new life cycle that's coming in 2027.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. So the sleeping phoenix, so these periods in time, they are based on the incarnation crosses. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the incarnation crosses are sort of like the life mission or life, like your description.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's what they are. They're like like what holds your life together, like this ongoing line through your life.
Theme.
Yes, exactly.
So are these the incarnation crosses of the planet?
Yeah, I think basically, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah,
that's very interesting. You definitely have a deeper knowledge of human design than I do. I have a pretty great knowledge, but you can study this stuff for your whole life, I would say.
Yeah, I that's what I was going to say. Like, I think human design is this thing where like the deeper you dive, the more you can learn, and it's just like layer upon layer upon layer. And even though like, because this is what I do with my everyday life, and as a 3/5 we learn through life experience.
Yeah.
I learn the most out of the readings with my clients. Like, it's my favorite thing to do, and this is where I also like can really verify the information and look at it from different angles and hear the experiences of how these gates and like gifts or whatever can be expressed. So I feel like those are the things that are like my jam.
Yeah. And it all works together as well, right? And I like what you're saying there about like knowing ourselves and the individualism and really authentically knowing ourselves. And at first glance, that sounds maybe like separating, because like it's about the individual. But when I hear it, I think when people are able to know themselves and to express their authenticity, it takes a level of vulnerability. It's really going in and healing all of that trauma, like you're deconditioning, right? So you're uncovering, you're deconditioning, and it takes a level of vulnerability, because it's a level of visibility, it's a level of being seen that people are not necessarily used to, right? It's a little like tender.
Absolutely. What is so interesting about this shift is the way that we can look at it is, if we look at our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation, like we came from what is the tribal, right? So it's all about doing what is best for our offspring. It's this mentality of, I have to do whatever it takes so that the next generation has it better than me, right? And this is old paradigm. But the new paradigm, and we can look at that, looking at us and looking at the younger generation, where it's really about understanding, who am I? Because I need to express my authenticity to contribute to the collective consciousness. So it's all about really just owning who we are and having space to actually understand who we are, because we have never had that space. It was always about, I need to, you know, provide for survival or like for the next generation. And now we're like, no, we have to figure out who we are. We have to be able to shine, because when I shine, I allow you to shine, right? And this is when we are in our purpose. So I believe human design is your map to becoming who you are authentically, because the only reason, this is what I believe, the only reason why we're here is to become authentic. Because only when we are authentic and unique, we fulfill the purpose that allows us to contribute to, you know, humanity, or like just like everybody.
And I totally agree with you. Were you going to say something else?
No. Like, I was just like figuring out what
I totally resonate with that. I feel it. And the other thing too is it's the authenticity and the contribution is so important. But what comes as a byproduct of authenticity is also deeper connection, right? Because you get that chance to feel belonging, true belonging. When you're authentic, you feel belonging. When you're inauthentic, when you're trying to fit in, you do not actually feel seen. You cannot feel proper belonging ever. So I mean, deeper connection. Yeah, it's totally deeper.
I agree 100%. There's no way that we can feel loved and we can feel connected to the other person when we're constantly wearing a mask and pretending to be somebody we're not. Like, it's impossible. And we will like, we can put on all this performance because our low self-worth needs the validation, but at the end of the day, if you're not open, if you're not vulnerable, if you don't show who you are, if you don't own your shadow aspects and all of this stuff, it's just, you're not going to feel love or connected to anybody. So oneness comes through this like really deep understanding of our uniqueness in differences, right? Also this idea that, oh, if you have a different, and I think this is quite controversial, but if you have a different political view than me, then I can't like you and you are bad. And I think this is not how we create oneness. Like, I feel like we agree to disagree is so important. Like, it's totally fine. Like, just because you think a different football team or whatever, like, I'm from Spain, so this is the example I think, but you know, like, so even if you like something else than what I like, or if we disagree, like, it's fine. We still have to learn to connect, because what makes us, you know, disconnect is believing that I know better than you, or if you think different than me, then you're like not as good as I am. Like, this is not how it works.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of Brene Brown's work. Huge. I teach her work constantly. What I was just talking about right there about belonging, that's straight out of her work. But what comes up for me when you're speaking on that is that the us versus them mentality, that divisiveness that's created out of like putting people into categories based on one aspect of who they are, it's very dangerous, because it creates enough disconnection and distance that we're able to start acting as though the other is not as human as we are. And when we dehumanize people, that creates the opportunity for really terrible action, right? It creates the opportunity for violence, you know, all the things that come in with dehumanization. Like we've seen this over and over again in history, how like the dehumanization of certain groups of people leads to terrible stuff. So it's not just about standing up for, you know, the people who need to be stood up for. That still has to happen, right? Like you know, touching on these issues, since we've gone there, like we still need to raise our voices about the change that needs to happen, but we cannot dehumanize others based on certain parts of, you know. And then also we don't ever gain understanding when we separate ourselves that way either. So that's just really important for us to touch on as we dive into that, because it is controversial. And it does seem quite popular to just, you know, distance yourself and write it off at this moment in history, because it's like, oh, them, I'm not like them, you know? So it's not really productive either, is it? Because change never comes out of shame. And that's another thing I love about human design too, is that there's no, like, it's not about shame. There's nothing wrong or right there, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. The other day I saw like a quote from Ra Uru, which is the guy who downloaded the human design information, and he was like, you cannot see if somebody's good or bad through their human design. And I was like, yeah, it's true. Like, sometimes people come to me and they want to have answers, and like, I cannot give you answers. Like, I'm not the person who's going to give you your ideal job description. This is not how I work. This is not how human design works. Like, we're talking about really like the energetics and like the bigger picture of what you're meant to be and how you can fulfill that. And yeah, and you know, there's absolutely no shame. It's really about understanding where you are and where you should get to, or where you can get to, and how to bridge that in the most like conscious way.
Yeah, absolutely. So old paradigm is like do, have, and then be, right? It's like do the things, you can have what you want, so you can be the person that you want to be. But this whole new paradigm, like you were saying before, is like let's focus on being who we are, so that we can then do the things, and then the having comes later.
So this is one of the things that I really like a lot in human design. So we have like the basic 5 archetypes, which are the 5 energy types, right? The projector, the generator, the manifestor, the manifesting generator, and the reflector. But then for each and every one of these energy types, we have like a really like a tool that helps us live out that design. So what differentiates human design from astrology, in my opinion, is that you actually have an actionable step that you can start implementing, right? Astrology tells you this is who you are and you can gain a lot of knowledge from that. But human design is this is who you are and this is how you can start living more authentically, so that you can collaborate with the universe in a way that supports you more. So then there is the not self theme, and the not self theme is the feeling that you get, or it's like the feeling that you get that the universe alarms you, so that you know, okay, I've been out of alignment. I have to like, you know, take a step back, look at what's happening and reassess. And then we have the signature. And the signature, I think, resonates a lot with what you were just saying, because the signature is the sign that we know that we're living in alignment, that we are on the right track. And the core essence to this is that a lot of us believe that if we make this amount of money and then we have this job title, then when we're like 65, we can start living the life we dream of, right? But we could get a heart attack the next day that we like, you know, hand in our destination or whatever. So human design, what it tells us that when our main goal is following our signature. So in your case, it's satisfaction, right? And the way that I describe satisfaction is like, because it's all about the sacral energy center, which is at the height of your belly button, and it's about lust and desires. It's all about that feeling of having like a really good meal that's like yummy, like, you know, like that. That's exactly. So it's so cute that you just did that, because they always say the generator is very vocal, right? And then they have like and sounds, you know. I never use that description in my readings. But it's so cute, because that's what happened, right? You thought about that satisfactory like feeling in your belly, and you were like, right? So cute. That's so perfect. So this is the thing. So if you go to sleep every day with your main goal being, okay, how satisfied was my day today? How much frustration did I feel? How can I delegate frustration out of my life? How can I communicate consciously so I stop doing the things that I don't really want to do, right? So when your main goal becomes your signature, which in your case is satisfaction.
That's for a generator specifically. I just want to clarify for those of you listening, each of the types have their own signature and not self theme. So we can run through those very quickly if you want.
I just want to, let me finish the last sentence. Please. So when you go to sleep every day satisfied, that is when, in your case as a generator, anybody, like when you go to sleep fulfilling your signature, the universe will come and support you with money and whatever support you need, so that you can keep on living your life authentically. It's not the other way around. It's not that we struggle and we do all these things we don't want to do, and we suffer and we like, you know, go through sweat and tears to become successful and make the money that we believe that when we attain that, then I can start living my life. This is old paradigm. New paradigm is start living your life right now, and the rest will follow to support your vision.
That is so good.
That's just what okay. So projector. So okay, let's start with the others, because the irony is with the projector. So generator, the not self theme is frustration. So when you feel frustrated, look at, you know, how much you're compromising in your life and how excited you are about the things that you're doing in your life. And your signature is satisfaction. So always aim to feel satisfied. As a manifesting generator, you're a hybrid between the manifestor and the generator. I'll explain about the manifestor in a second, but it's very similar to the generator. So it's also satisfaction, and frustration that you have to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the manifester, and the manifester is only like 7-8% of the population. And for them, the not self theme is anger, which especially for women, many times it's very hard to connect to because being an angry woman is like very frowned upon. So I really encourage all manifestors, doesn't matter how you identify with, but to really look at anger and embrace it instead of trying to hide it or numb it, because it's going to always indicate where you're not living in alignment. And the signature is, no, I'm lost.
Manifester.
Yeah, the manifester, peace. Sorry.
Peace.
Yeah. So the most important thing for the manifester is creating peace in your life. How can you live a peaceful life? Many times manifestors just want to be left alone to do their own thing, and they really like what they have to be looking out for is how to find peace in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the reflector, which is only 1%, which are like the unicorns in the human design.
Yeah.
And their not self theme is disappointment. So every time they're disappointed, they have to look at where they're trying to hold on too much to a structure or try to fit in a box that doesn't fit them at all. And their signature is surprise. So when they allow their life to go fluidly, when they're open, they're constantly surprised by themselves, by their environment, by the people that they meet. So they know that that's like a good sign. Mm-hmm. And then we have the projector, which is what I am. And there's like 20% of the population are projectors. And our not self theme is bitterness, which is just feeling like nobody sees us. And we're just like, hi, I'm the projector. Why does nobody see all the cool things I know and I can do?
Yeah.
And then the, which I find is so ironic, the signature for the projector is success and recognition and making money for your specific niche, because all projectors have like a specific niche. And the reason why I find this so ironic is because the generator and the manifesting generator and even the manifester, you have like a type of energy, like in our society, when you like, if you want to make money, you exchange energy for money, right? I put in these amount of hours, I get this amount of money. But because this doesn't work for the projector, because they're non-energetic energy types, meaning you do not have consistent energy, you can't really just start like working as a waitress or whatever, because you don't have that kind of energy to support yourself. Like sure, you can do it for 3 months, but you'll burn out. So the irony is that the projector is the only one who's meant to be successful as their signature, as like a signpost that you're like on the right track. But we can't attain it in the way that society teaches us to.
Yeah.
Which is why projectors struggle so much with work and like purpose.
Yes. And then we get to our oh my gosh, we get to the good feeling by following our strategy, right? Like we get to the signature.
Yeah, I think also it's important not to hold too much those words accountable, right? Like those human design analyst words, I feel like they can make things also very harsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because human design is definitely also not meant to limit you.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there's like human design 1.0, and then there's human design whatever is coming now, and this is like, you know, just this new generation of people who are fascinated with human design readers and experts who are really reframing whatever came before. And I think that's amazing. And I think that's why also like there's more and more interest, because it's like, at least the way that I do it, because I come from fashion, like the images, I try to make images that are like, you know, I don't know, interesting and beautiful and aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Because this is how we, you know, we like people can access information. I have like so many people that I do readings for, like, oh, I heard about human design like 3 years ago, but like it was too complicated. It didn't look really nice. Like, I'm not interested in it. And then they're like, oh, and then I found your account and it's so beautiful. And I like, you know, it's interesting because it's important for us. This stuff is important to us.
It's easier to like have space for it when you can have that aesthetically pleasing, you know, way of consuming it. It draws you in. I absolutely love that too. I love your stories as well. You put so many beautiful images inside your stories.
Thank you so much. Feel very recognized as the projector.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and the invitation too, right? Come on my podcast. I would love to invite you.
I love invitations.
That's the strategy. So the strategy is how you are supposed to sort of like move in the world. Is that how you would describe it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the new paradigm a little bit more. So how can we decondition ourselves? Like what's the best advice that you have about where we should focus our deconditioning efforts to slide into that new paradigm, you know, in the best way, most, aligned way possible?
Okay, so this is what I am learning right now. Like what actually when I was digging deep into this new paradigm thing and like trying to create these posts and stuff, just in general, what I'm like obsessed with right now is authority and the new paradigm. Okay. So the authority in human design is the tool that we get to make the best decisions for us. And with every right decision, we take one step closer into our purpose. Mm-hmm. So historically, our parents in school, people tell us, if you think enough about a problem, if you make a list of pros and cons, then you will be able to make the safest decision. Mm-hmm. If the pandemic hasn't shown us that safety is a construct, I do not know what will show us, okay? Human design teaches us that we all have an inner voice, an inner compass, an inner authority that helps us to make these decisions, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So our mind is great to, resolve conflict, to get inspired, but it's not here to make decisions. Our body has a much bigger wisdom than our mind could ever reach. This is, mm-hmm. This is like the main thing. So why is authority so important? So as we were talking before, the new paradigm has brought all this structure. We have the school system, religion, government. If we're looking at it, we're seeing that these institutions, these big outer authorities are slowly crumbling. Mm-hmm. The power religion used to have over us is changing. Mm-hmm. The school system, I don't know how you're doing with your kids, but I am like so desperate for a different school system that teaches my kids something that I feel is like actually of value. Mm-hmm. So I am personally very frustrated with the school system, and I know I'm not the only one.
Oh yeah.
And look at our government, like if the past years haven't shown us how much we cannot, believe in the government, or even like in laws. We all know that laws are not really like, fair. They have nothing to do with fair. They have to do with like things people made up, and you know what I mean? Like all these things, like even in the like yogic community, these gurus have had like a Me Too movement. Like there's been so much stuff that all these like people who have told us how we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, all these things are slowly crumbling. They're losing the power because we're moving into this new paradigm, into the new paradigm in 2027, where it's all about really listening to our own authority, to our inner voice. And that is, for me, the biggest tool that we need to understand and rely on and trust upon if we want to slide into this new paradigm in 2027.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much about trust, right? It's very much about going inward and connecting with your deeper truth. But I also think the deeper truth of, the collective, the deeper truth of infinite intelligence. I think that's the wellspring of our intuition. Like I've heard several times recently, is prayer is when we talk to God, and intuition is when God speaks to us. And I love that, because I think it's true. Like we do have that, we have that inside of us. And I was speaking about self-trust just recently with somebody, and the reframe there was so beautiful, because it was like, it's not necessarily the trust doesn't need to be only placed upon the self, right? Because that implies like a lot of responsibility on one individual. The trust gets to be, applied to the greater intelligence. That's what you need to lean into, really, is that you don't need to trust that you're just going to make this right decision on your own. You're tapping into your intuition, which is something a lot deeper.
Your ancestors, your, whatever, everybody who's around you supporting. I believe that 100%.
Yeah.
We like that, because I hadn't thought about it in a while. But yeah, even in human design, you can see that. Like, for example, the splenic intuition, the one that I have, comes from, very ancestral, very survival instinct, very, very old lineage of information that's been passing through generations and generations through the DNA in, my heritage. So it's like what you say makes a lot of sense. What I think is just like, so insane. Right now, we're not seeing it because we're not there yet. But if we look at like something silly, like the 10 Commandments, like you should not kill anybody. The thought that somebody had to tell us from the outside that we shouldn't kill anybody, as if we didn't know that in our core base. To me now it sounds like ridiculous how somebody could tell us you shouldn't kill. Like, of course I'm not like gonna lie, like I already know that. I don't need an outer authority to tell me that. No.
Yeah, I totally know. My cat just came in the room, so this podcast is gonna have little Siamese kitty meows in it, but oh well. She figured out how to open the door. It's all good. Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Agree with you 1,000%. It's about tapping into the inner wisdom, the inner voice that comes from, you know, something much bigger, something much greater than us. And when you're speaking about the mind, like to me, the mind is connected to collective consciousness. It's the brain, really. It's like the brain is separate from the mind to me. So it's the brain that's trying to use logic that gets us into trouble. Maybe you can't trust your brain, you know, but you can trust that guttural, inner, splenic, that whisper of something that's coming to you from within. And you don't really know where it's coming from, right? You don't really know. But if you believe and if you have faith that it's connected to something bigger than yourself, your spirituality, your faith, your knowing, that is something that can always be trusted in.
And that is the most, like, learning to trust that is going to be, I feel like, the most essential and most important thing. I don't believe we're going to need human design in I don't know how many years, you know, because we'll be so in tune with what our body is telling us that all these things, all these tools, we won't need them anymore, because we'll be so in tune with our inner authority and our inner guidance system that we won't have issues like understanding why we're doing what we're doing. We'll just be like, totally, this is what, like, I really believe this is a transition.
Yeah, that is really so much about knowing ourselves, right? It's about knowing, like, okay, well, when I make a decision, I know that this is the sign that I get. This is how it feels when it's a yes for me. This is how it feels when it's a no for me. It's really it's an awareness of self, right?
And also, like, also really having the you know, to see it through, because many times we hear our body telling us stuff, but we're like, oh no, this is not safe, somebody won't love me, or, you know, like, we have so many limiting beliefs and so many like traumas and stuff that are in our body holding us back. Like, especially I use the spleen a lot as an example because it is such a survival instinctual thing. So just like, for example, to share a story of myself, the important thing about the spleen is its intuition, right? So you're like, oh yeah, my intuition is telling me this and that. But in this, I feel like this goes with any authority. But when you have trauma, your intuition is your intuition, but it can also be just a trauma being activated, right? So and in the beginning of when I started doing readings, I had a male client, and I've had male clients before, but they were usually like the boyfriends of women that I had clients for, and I knew them. And I had this guy, and I only saw like this little picture in his like Instagram profile, and I was like so suspicious. My limiting belief was like, oh, this guy looks so weird. I have no idea why he'd be into human design. And I got so activated, and I have like, I don't know where the issue comes from. I'm working with this with my therapist, okay?
Yes.
But I have issues being like alone with men in closed spaces, men that I don't know. So like being in cabs. I mean, I'm getting better. Like now I'm okay actually, but being in cabs in a closed space was like very activating. Like when I walk down the street and I see a man and I'm alone, like my whole adrenals start like flushing out that adrenaline. My mind becomes sharp. Like I go in survival mode.
Yeah.
So when this guy started writing me, I'm like, my whole body got activated. Like I couldn't sleep for 3 days properly. I got herpes. Like I was so stressed. Telling my friends, my brain, right? Not my mind, but my brain was like, this could happen, this could happen. I'm like, Maike, just take a breather. You're on a computer. Even if this person sits in front of you butt naked, you can always close the computer and be like, bye, right?
Yeah.
But my trauma was so activated, and my friends were like, oh, Maike, if your intuition is telling you not to do it, you shouldn't do it. And I was like, I know this is not my actual spleen. I know this is my intuition. I know this is my trauma getting activated. I have to see this through. So really, I was in such like, it was so stressful, and I confronted it. I, had the reading, and in less than a minute, this guy was like such a charming, sweet, open, vulnerable, like, I don't know, he was just expanding me in so many ways to meet this kind of man, because obviously we all like are attracted to like whatever our patterns or whatever. But to be able to just, I don't know, just meet this person that was just such a great lesson for me. In a minute, I was like, wow, Maike, this was like so exaggerated. Like, I went crazy, but this is trauma speaking.
Yeah. It's fear, right? And fear and the spleen are like, they're very connected. That's what the spleen is all about. There's all the fear gates.
Yeah, exactly. That's what exactly. So this is what I was talking about, because I have the splenic authority that I could have said, oh no, my authority is telling me not to take this reading, but it wasn't my authority. It was my fear. But I'm sure that even with you in your emotional wave, why you have to wait is because if you're in a low emotional wave, maybe your fear gets activated much more, right? You're like not in the mood, or like, whatever the things are. So I just think it's important to be aware of that. One thing is your body telling you the truth and being your inner authority. And we always have to look out for our traumas not getting activated and throwing us for a loop.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I'm going to get the cat out. She's just all over me. 1 sec. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So my question for you then is, how do we distinguish between the fear response, the trauma response, and our intuition? How do we know that we can trust one over the other, or that we shouldn't listen to one over the other?
Really, honestly, I think I think it's I mean, I'm a 3/5, so I would say experience, but I think, yeah, it comes with just getting to know yourself more and more, because I was able to differentiate, right? I knew it was my trauma response, but because I know myself. Yeah. So I think the other thing is I've read this book that I feel like everybody in our community has read, and I'm super late to the party, but it's called The Untethered Soul, about like from Michael A. Singer. Yeah, right. So all he talks about is stepping into that fear. Is like not allowing fear to to freeze you in your life, to allow you to get stuck. So fear and pain are natural emotions in our ecosystem that we have to go through. So if it's not something that is like really dangerous, like you can fall off the balcony or something like that and break your arm or whatever, I really think that stepping into that fear is where great lessons are.
Yeah, I totally agree.
This is what I've been going through. Like, I'm walking towards fear and pain all the time, and it's so uncomfortable, and I hope it does something good, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah. I always say, like, hold hands with fear, make friends with fear, walk with fear, because it's guiding you somewhere. Absolutely. It's taking you somewhere that you have a lesson to learn, or there's growth or expansion there for you. Absolutely. For and sure.
So scary. Like it feels like to me, it feels like I'm going to die. Like in Spain, there's this expression, like, I'm going to die. You say that all the time. I know it's weird, right? But I say this so often, and people look at me like, okay, you're exaggerating. But it is that feeling of like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through this. And when you get to the other side, you're like, wow, I made it. And yeah, you like, I feel like it's major up leveling, like chance to level.
It totally is. Okay, so for people who are sort of like new to human design, or they have heard of it and they've kind of dabbled a little bit, like, what's your advice to someone who's just starting off, or has, dipped their toe and they're like overwhelmed, and then they don't know like where to go from there, so they kind of just throw it out? Because that's what I did the first time. I was like, this is too much, can't handle it, see you later. I came back eventually.
So I think the trick is not doing too much research and not following too much people, because it can get so overwhelming. Like, even when I do research or I watch like YouTube videos, I'm like, I don't even think you know what you're trying to say. Like, some people use such old knowledge, or things are like super complex, and I'm like, I do not like you. Like, yeah. So I would say choose 2, max 3 sources that you really connect to, that you feel pull towards, right? You know who's going to give you what you need. So trust yourself to figure out who are like 2-3 sources that you can absolutely trust and follow on social media. And then I think the best thing is to get a reading. I really I really believe getting a reading is the best thing that you can do. It will save you so much time. The difference between somebody who comes to me who has just like started out and somebody who has been like, digging online for the last 3 months, 6 months, 2 years is like they come to me and they literally have like 2 pages PDF of questions. And I'm like, okay, great. Let me do the reading. And at the end, we look what's open. And literally there's normally no questions open, or maybe there's like one question that's like left unsolved. So I know a lot of people love it and they're like, I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to do this my own way. And I think, great, you do you, right? But also the connection and the wisdom that you can get through somebody just focusing on you is just, I don't know. I think it's the best thing you can do.
Oh, I agree. I agree for sure. So I've had several different readings from different people. I've worked with different coaches that use human design, and each time I gain a new perspective. It's not necessarily that they've given me different information. It's just the way it's been delivered is that it's opened a new level for me. So I fully agree.
Yeah, I love that you say that. For example, the reason why I think like, or what I think that makes my readings like special or whatever, is because I have a completely open throat. So having a completely open energy center in your throat, there's nothing connected to my mind. There's nothing connected to my soul. So I really believe that the truth comes through me, right? There's nothing that influences what I say from the inside.
Yeah.
So when I have readings, I always believe like I'm totally open and allow the wisdom to come through me. And I sometimes get like goosebumps. So I really feel like there's a kind of channeling of information that the person needs to hear in that moment right now. Right.
I also have completely open throat.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I also love the having guests on my podcast for that reason as well. Like, and being a generator, having something to respond to. Okay. So if someone were to, get a reading with you, how far in do you go? How far in do you go in your initial reading?
My first question is where you at? So when I know where you at, we can see where we're going. So it really depends if you've had readings before, if you're like, I believe like that the energy type, I mean, not only I but like Ra, the guy always says, like the most important thing is understanding your energy type, your strategy and your authority. Like those things are the most important. And many times, even if people like have read stuff online, I mean, obviously I ask if that's okay with them, but for me, it's really important to get that across, because when you start implementing your strategy is when you see the biggest result. Like all the other things are super fascinating and we can learn a lot from them, but the ones that are the most easiest to implement and the biggest result and change to see in your life are the main pillars. But we can go super deep. Like, I don't know, I also do like digestion and environment and like strong sense and all these things. So it really depends on where the person's at. And there's a lot of like, it also depends. You can get like a reading where you get like the human design information, or depending on how the person is expressing their thoughts and doubts to me. Like some people are more open and sharing. So I do more like intuitive guiding sessions where we like, those are my favorite really, because we go really, really deep and we can unblock together. But there's some people who don't want to share so much about their life because they're not ready yet. So they get like a 100% proper human design reading with all the info. So it really depends on the client, where they're at, and we like together find our way to get the most.
That's so wonderful. I love that. So it's tailored to you, just like human design. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous. Thank you again so much, Maike, for taking the time to come and talk to us about this. Okay, so we've already mentioned your Instagram where people can come and find you. Do you have any exciting, things upcoming or offers that you can
Yes. Oh my God, so exciting.
Yeah, tell us.
Yes. So we now have the source code, and the source code is a 40-page tailored to you unique PDF with your human design written up, because for some people the readings aren't affordable or they're not ready to, you know, have a one-on-one session. So this is really the closest you can get to having a personalized reading, but it's all in text. You get a beautifully designed PDF. So that is the new offering that we're offering, like from 2 days from now, from the 1st of August. So
amazing.
You.
Yeah, so that'll be available when this episode comes out for
And
sure.
also, like, I'm working on a workshop that's going to support people to decondition and all of these things. Like, I'm working so hard on this, but I think before October, it's probably not going to come out. But I'm very excited about that.
That's exciting. And the cool thing about podcasts,
I will let you know,
is that they live forever. So there could definitely be people, you know, listening past October, then go find Maike and look for that. So thank you again. And the final question that I have for you that I ask all of my guests is, what are you currently manifesting?
It's not PJ13.
Well,
hot girl summer, Milli, hot girl summer.
Okay, so she's looking for something steamy. Go girl, I love it. I saw your Instagram story that you were, I don't know if it was gifted body jewelry. That's lovely.
I'm dying of embarrassment. I'm like red in the face. I'm blushing. Yes, we're gonna have a hot girl summer, Milli.
Go for it. I'm so here for it. Go. I fully empower you to just go for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the however many time. I'm so grateful, and thank you for everybody who has listened, and we will catch you another time soon.